Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall, psychic all the way from the Gold Coast. What an interesting week it's been. I mean, it's been a week of sadness and tears, and it's been a week of weather events, but let's just talk about the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. I know that everybody sort of said, well, you know, it didn't really come as a shock. She was of an age where we could be expecting her to end her journey. But for many people, it's still a very, very sad time. It's a time where we now suddenly face a time of change yet again. And we've had enough change in the last 2.5 years, I hear you say, to sort of, you know, be bringing upon another change again. Now, for many people, they sort of say, oh, well, you know, like, you know, it's time to start looking at republics. And I know that conversations happened here in Australia a little bit. But I think for now, I think we need a little bit of stability. So, you know, we welcome the new king and we hope his reign is very long and very fruitful and he brings about change and modernises things and stands up for the things that he believes in. He's a very strong advocate for climate change. So let's hope he bring some of that to the monarchy now that it really becomes an issue that people will start to take it seriously. For other parts of the world, I know that the fires have been raging in California. And again, my heart goes out to the people that are affected by that. Nobody really understands the devastation of fire unless you've lived through it. It's different to a flood. And there's, you know, I'm not saying one's any better than the other. We've got floods and hurricanes and things in other parts of the world and a lot of people displaced in other parts of the world as well. It's just a very difficult time. The world doesn't seem to be able to get a little bit of a go on and to be able to sort of start to get back to some sort of normality. If it's not a weather event, it's another outbreak of COVID or some other, you know, infectious disease, that we're all sort of constantly, I think, walking around on eggshells, trying to find our footing again. So it's interesting that the card of the week this week is the Hanged Man. Now, the Hanged Man is the card of getting stronger in oneself. Hallelujah. We've been through a lot, haven't we not, as a collective unit around the world? After a lot of deliberating and delaying in your life, you are finally getting on the right track. So this is the correct way up for the Hanged Man. I don't actually believe in reversed meanings of tarot cards. So this is the actual correct way up of the Hanged Man, that he is meant to be hanging upside down. It's almost as if he's allowing himself to just be, you know, have a little meditation time or something as he's hanging upside down, and he's quite enjoying it and feeling like he's finally back in the driver's seat again in his life. So hopefully that means that each and every one of us will have a little fleeting feeling of that we're finally back in the driver's seat. We are finally getting our lives back on track after a lot of changes, a lot of deliberating, a lot of delaying, a lot of thinking, that we are certainly getting stronger in ourselves again and we can actually move forward. So it's a very interesting card. Just to briefly talk about the reversed meanings in the tarot, the original teaching, there was no reversed meaning in the tarot cards. And what I always teach my students is if I stand you on your head, it's not going to change your personality. Yes, you'll have a rush of blood to the head, but I won't change who you are. So in my personal belief, a tarot card doesn't change because it's upside down. It's still the same energy. It's still the same card, still has the same message. So that's just my personal belief. And I've been working with that for well over 40 years. So you work with it how you see fit. What feels comfortable to you is the right way for you. So let's dive into the astrology for this week. We've got a very, very big week. And I know the question on everybody's lips is, oh my goodness, is Mercury retrograde again? Yes, Mercury is retrograde again. Started on the 2nd of September. We'll go through to the 9th of October. Fairly long Mercury retrograde this time. It's in Virgo. So when Mercury goes retrograde, it's a time where we need to be very careful about any documents we might sign, listen very carefully to any conversations we have, and make sure if we've got to have a serious conversation with somebody that they've got their listening ears on and they really are listening and focusing on what you've got to say. It's not necessarily the ideal time to go and ask the boss for that pay rise unless it's absolutely necessary. And it's a time that I personally try and avoid signing any documents if at all possible. If I do have to sign documents under this time, I ask them to give them to me. I take them away. I sit down quietly and I read the document out aloud, because I've always found if you read a document out aloud, you pick up on any mistakes where if you're just scanning it and reading it, and particularly on a screen, you sometimes skip over things that where if it's printed out, it's solid, it's in your hand, and you're reading it out loud, you then tend to pick up something that's not right. Mercury retrograde is a time when I think that we're supposed to regather and reorganize our goals. It's a time where things can be sort of marginally slower. So it's time that we can sort of catch up to date with the paperwork, get creative, do something a little bit different because, we've got a little bit of a lull in some areas in our lives that it's giving us that little bit of catch up time. So don't look at Mercury retrograde as something to be feared. Look at it as something to work with. It's like a little mini holiday from certain things at 3 times a year, that you have that ability to just stop, analyze, look, and make sure that you are on the right track for where you want to go. And with Mercury in Virgo, it feels very comfortable there. It's asking you to look at your health, your lifestyle, your diet, the supplements that you might take. Are you eating properly? Are you getting enough rest? Are you really doing what you want to do? Are you doing the things that make you happy? And that's really important because it's all well and fine to say, look, I'm doing everything right. But if you're in a job that you don't like, that doesn't make your heart sing, then that sort of pulls away from everything else, all the other good work you're doing in other areas of your life. So it's a time to make sure that we're precisely where we need to be. The sun is still in Virgo, will be there for another week or so now. Doesn't change signs till around about the 23rd of this month. Then it'll move into Libra. So we've still got the focus on what we're supposed to be doing for ourselves. Regardless of your star sign, you are supposed to be looking at your health hygiene, the food that you're eating. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough exercise? Is there something that needs to change in your life? For some people, they might find that their mind is very active at the moment too. We've just had a very powerful full moon in Pisces, and that's the opposite sign to Virgo. So that triggered off a lot of things, particularly with this Mercury retrograde. A lot of people are sort of inboxing me and saying, Amanda, I can't turn my head off. My mind is just racing and I'm bringing up things from the past. Why is that? Quite often Mercury retrograde can work that way, particularly when you've got the sun in Virgo as well. It's dredging up things that we've put in the back burner, things that we're going to get around to looking at one day. Well, now's the day. It's the time to process these, release them, because they also play havoc on our health too. If we're holding on to old grievances or old issues, things that no longer suit the purpose, then we're actually slowing up the better things that can come into our lives. So it's time to finally find our strength with the Hanged Man and move forward. So we've also got a major configuration or a major transit that's going on at the moment. And I quite often talk about the North Node here on the show. The North Node is the way forward, what we're aspiring to achieve. Now, the North Node is currently conjunct or holding hands with Uranus. Uranus is the planet of the unusual, the unexpected, things happening out of nowhere, things that sort of can happen very suddenly, good or bad. It's also holding hands or conjunct what's known as the part of fortune. Now, this doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to become rich. What it means is, and it's all sitting in Taurus, what it means for us in layman's terms is we are starting to be guided and shown the right way forward. Now, for some people, this might come suddenly. It might be that aha moment, that light bulb moment that all of a sudden it's as plain as the nose on your face. There's the answer. There's the direction I've been looking for a long time. All of a sudden it's here. And it feels right. It feels very, very right in your soul. And it might be something that's going to take a little bit of time to get off the ground. You might need to put in a lot of effort. You might need to do a lot of research, and it may require some money as well. So whatever it is, even though it's coming to you, or the idea or the thought pattern or the opportunity is coming to you quickly, and it is right for you, there may still need to be some work done to achieve this. So make sure that you're aware of that just because the ideas come quickly doesn't mean the whole thing's going to unfold as quickly. We still need to take our time, analyse, make sure that it's right for us, and proceed with caution. I always insist that you proceed with caution, even with the world's greatest ideas. And I'm a supreme optimist, and I just love when things just sort of land in your lap and you think, oh, goody, let's go. But, sometimes you've got to put the brakes on a little bit too and sort of say, okay, is this really right? Don't just get caught up in the excitement of the moment. We still have Pluto and Capricorn. Now, Pluto is still doing his dance there till 2024. So he's starting to sort of dredge up a lot of things around the world. Lots of people that were getting away with things, whether it was money laundering or lying to the public or whatever the case may be, are sort of slowly being brought to justice and slowly being brought out into the light. And that is Pluto's role. For the rest of us that haven't got anything to hide, It's just slowly starting to bring things more into our orbit, things into our space that's sort of saying, okay, this is what I need to do. For many people under this Pluto transit, which has been going on since 2008, I might add, has been a time of complete transformation, and particularly more so during the pandemic, where a lot of people sort of suddenly realised that they could get off the treadmill a little bit and move to a different location or move back home and have a better work-life balance. And many people have made that transition or made choices or changes because of the pandemic that might never have done that. So, you know, the pandemic's had its upside as well as its downside. So for many people that have made changes, their lives are much fuller and much more less complicated, and they're living what they consider to be the good life. We still have Saturn in Aquarius, so we still need to be aware of that things can happen very suddenly, very differently. When Saturn's sort of trying to teach us some lessons here, sometimes we don't like the lessons that we're being taught, and we're being asked to think outside the square. Not everything always has to stay the same. We can start to look to the future, and we can start to look to different areas of our lives to bring us answers and new directions. Finally, we've still got Jupiter in Aries. For all those lucky fire sign people, it's a time where you really need to strut your stuff at the moment, sort of, you know, make your own opportunities. If you see an opening, go for it. You know, don't sit back and be the flower on the wall. Be the one that sort of stands up and says, hey, take notice of me. I've got something really wonderful or really great to offer you or your company or your services. Now's the time to push yourself forward, particularly if you're an Aries. There is new opportunities, new openings coming up. You've only got about eight and a bit months left of this transit, so don't waste it. Now's the time to start really reshaping your future. If you feel that you need a change, if you feel you're in a rut, now's the time to do it. But also make sure that you focus on your health too, that you're being honest with yourself at what might need to change in your life. For the other two fire signs, it's just a time to sort of grab any opportunity that comes along with both hands and run. You know, it's a time to sort of get people to notice who you are. You know, it's not about boasting. It's about sharing with someone what you're capable of doing. People don't know all of our skills unless maybe we share it with them and enlighten them to what the possibilities are. So we're going to take our first caller, and it's Sarah in Barnsley in South Yorkshire in England. Are you there, Sarah?
Hello.
Hello, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you?
Good, thank you, sweetie. Do you have a question I can work with?
Yeah, well, I'm wondering at all if you can tell me if me and my boyfriend, we broke up about 3 weeks ago, and so I'm just wondering if maybe you could see if we're going to, you know, if he'll make contact again, and if at all we will get back together.
Okay. All right. It's really, really interesting because he's blaming you for the breakup. And I want to say to you, I don't think that's the case. I think, you know, look, it takes two to tango, and I appreciate both of you had issues there that maybe hadn't been resolved or, you know, weren't getting enough airtime. But to me, a lot of what I'm seeing around him is like being a naughty little child sulking in the corner saying, I didn't get my own way. Well, you can't always have your own way in a relationship. You know, it's got to be a little bit of give and take. Look, I'm not going to rule out the potential of the two of you getting back together again, Sarah, but what I would suggest to you, when he does come back, and he will come back in the next couple of weeks as if nothing's happened, you can't just let him get away with that. Look, it's wonderful that he's come back, and it's wonderful that he wants to sort of, you know, pick up the relationship again and move forward. But hang on a minute, we can't just do that and forget what's gone on either. You know, we've got to talk this through. We've got to sort of try and find some resolutions to this. And he can't just keep behaving like a spoilt child when he doesn't get his own way. You know, you have needs as well. You have things that you require from the relationship, and he doesn't seem to honour that. And that really makes me quite cross, Sarah, because I think you've bent over backwards to try and accommodate above and beyond what I can. The whole than what I think you should be doing. Yeah, and I appreciate that, you know, you've got strong feelings and everything for him, but you can't be the one doing all the giving and he does all the taking. It's got to be a bit more balanced than that. Would it be fair to say maybe is he a bit insecure? Is that the reason for this behaviour?
Possibly, yeah, he's a Taurus. But he went about 4 years ago, it was. His little boy's mum, he committed suicide and he found her.
Right.
And their relationship was an absolute wreck anyway, to be fair. So
Yeah.
obviously he's not dealt with things, and grief goes into there's different stages of grief, but he doesn't allow himself to heal, and he just keeps stuck and saying, "Oh, I'm broken," and just trying to excuse all of his bad behaviour and anything he does. There is excuses. But when we got together, it was like 5 months after she died. It was him that did the pursuing, the chasing, the wanting to, the dates, the I love you, because I didn't want to push it in, and he was the one doing it all, and we were fine up until I think it was July, August last year, and that's when I noticed a change in him. He just literally went so cold, and then come October, it was all right when I was watching his business for him and everything, when he went off on his holidays, that changed, and it was October, 27th October last year, that's when he just, out of the blue, broke up with me, threw me out, and it wasn't very nice. I spent about nine months trying to get back with him, fighting for him. And it was all good and well, when he was, he wanted to spend time with me, we spent days, nights together, but he would never put a stamp on it. And then when we got he felt himself getting too close to me again, that's when he pushed me away, and it made me very, very poorly, physically and mentally, and it really, really was terrible. And we broke up 3 weeks ago. We were back together for about 5 weeks. I think it was end of July, and he was the one again wanted now because I'd given up. He wanted to get back together. So I was really shocked. He tried hard and said, okay. 2 days, he was lovely, and then after that, he spent every single day. God, I was lucky if he didn't give me at least 20 nasty insults and, call me horrible names. He wasn't that same person I wanted from the time I was with this time round. And he was vile, and the last time we saw each other, it got really bad.
You don't need to put up with it, Sarah.
Yeah, he was gaslighting deliberately, and then he,
you have to really, yes, darling, you have to really think about this. If he's become violent, then this is something that you don't want to step back into in a hurry, because that's not a good sign. Look, it's all well and fine sort of saying, okay, we can make excuses for him that he hasn't dealt with the grief, and I'm not disagreeing with you, he probably hasn't. But, it's not as if it happened last. He's had opportunities to go and get some professional help about that. There's plenty of good books on the market that can help you work through your grief if you don't want to go to a counsellor or whatever. I think his problems go much deeper than that. I think that's just sort of like the excuse he makes for his bad behaviour. I think he is really quite unstable in many, many areas, and it's like, I don't think he knows what love is. He doesn't know what he wants out of the relationship, but he knows he wants you, but then he doesn't want you when he doesn't want you. It's sort of like he wants to be in a relationship because that's what he thinks he needs, but when he gets it, he doesn't understand what to do with it. And that's what I said, it's his attention seeking all the time. It's sort of, it's behaviour that you wouldn't accept in a child, so why should you accept it in an adult? I'd be very, very careful, Sarah, about taking him back this next time. Yes, listen to what he's got to say, but I think you're sort of starting to come to terms with, you're looking at this through a different sort of lenses now. You're seeing it for what it is, and maybe there may be one more time that the two of you get back together again. Look, I hope it works, but I really have my reservations, because I feel towards the end of this year you're going to take a stand and say, that's it, I've had enough of this, and you're going to wipe your hands of the whole situation and open your heart up ready to allow someone new to come into your life that really will value you. I'm not saying somebody's going to come in that first week, but I don't think you're going to be on your own very long before you will meet somebody, Sarah, that will treat you the right way, in the manner that you deserve. This man isn't treating you the right way. So unfortunately, Sarah, that's where we've got to leave it, because I've got to move on to my next caller, but I wish you well, and just keep strong and just know that you're worthy of so much more than this, Sarah. You are really a lovely person. So it's interesting because in the last couple of years, we've all had to deal with grief in some way. And grief isn't always about a death of a person. It can be about a major change in our lives that is like a death. You know, if you've lost your job or you've been forced to move or you've had something thrust upon you. And most people around the world during this pandemic went through some form of grief in one way or another, whether it was just the loss of not being able to step out the door and live life in the normal way that you do was a form of grief. And we all had to come to terms with it. And I know that around the world that there was an increase in domestic violence and things like that during lockdowns because people didn't know how to live in confined quarters with people that they share a life with. And all of a sudden tempers got frayed and the uncertainty and changes with income and all those sort of things put stresses on relationships that normally wouldn't have been there or been as exaggerated. So we all went through some form of a grief during the pandemic. And for some people, they're still coming out the other side of it, that there's still things that they don't dare allow themselves to get excited about now in case it changes, that they're their emotions are a little bit more subdued. And these are all layers of grief. And it's not that in saying that, you know, if you're feeling that way that you necessarily need to seek professional help. What I'm suggesting is you need to be aware of that. You need to monitor it. You need to sort of look at, is it getting any better? In 3 months' time, do I still feel the same way about, am I not allowing myself to get excited about something in case it's ripped away from me again? If that's the case, then I think you need to sort of seek some professional help along those lines to help you understand the situation, because we have many different layers of grief and we all need to work with those in many different ways. We're going to talk with Janice now in Meriden in Mississippi. Are you there, Janice?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
You have a question you'd like me to answer?
Yes, ma'am. I really just wanted a question like, is me and him going to be together? Like, are we going to be together? Like, you know, are we meant to be and are we going to be together? Because right now, it don't look like so, but I just want to know for professionals.
Okay, Janice, all right. Yes, look, I can see that there's still some very difficult days ahead of the two of you. It's interesting again because I'm going to say it's sort of like an unbalanced situation. You seem to be the one doing all the giving, he's doing all the taking. It's interesting, though, because I feel with your young man, it's like he's angry with himself. He's angry that he can't get his life on track the way that he wants it to. And it's this frustration that sort of overspills into everything else. And then sort of like the person that's closest to him is you. So therefore he takes it out on you instead of sort of turning around and channeling that anger or that frustration and saying, okay, I'm going to sort of work on myself. I'm going to work on getting where I need to be, you know, getting a better paying job or whatever the thing that's causing him frustration. And I think it's a number of areas. I think it's not just work. I think it's his home life, his family life. Doesn't particularly get on well with his family. He thinks that they don't respect him or appreciate him. And look, they probably don't in some ways, but I know that they love him at the same time. You know, families are a complicated business. So it's when it comes back to the two of you, I think you're the one that's stronger than of the two of you, Janice. And it's whether or not I suppose you can put up with his temperamental behaviour unless it starts to improve and he starts to show you a little bit more respect and a little bit more decency. I don't believe this relationship will stand the test of time because I think you'll just get up one day and say, that's it, I'm done. You know, I've had enough of this nonsense and walk away. But for the moment, I don't see the relationship coming to a complete end. I still see it being very sort of up and down and all over the place. I still see you it's going to be, you know, a difficult time ahead for you because you've really, really got to sort of ask yourself what it is that you want, Janice, long-term wise. Is this the sort of relationship that you want to wake up to in 12 months' time, 2 years' time? And I think you'll probably find the answer is no. Oh, yes, I'd want it if it was this, this, and this, and this. Well, sometimes we don't have the answers to make something right. He's got to want to make the changes in himself that will then flow on and make changes into the relationship. So you need to be aware of that, and you need to make sure that you're putting your needs forward first too, because that's really important. So Janice, that's where we're going to leave it. We're coming to the end of the show again, and this week I really had to try and think of an appropriate song that would fit everybody around the world, from the passing of the Queen to the bushfires, the floods, the turbulence that's been going on in the world recently. We've had such difficult things to walk through, changes of governments, and people are dying left, right and centre, and famous people, famous singers, people that we love and, grew up with. And all of a sudden, things are changing. So I came up with this song, and it's one of my ultimate favourite songs. It's been sung by many, many people around the world, but I believe this version to be the best. And yes, I might be slightly biased because it's by John Farnham, but I've had many people say to me over the years when they've heard me put this on the turntable at different events that it's almost like a religious experience. And the song is called You'll Never Walk Alone. So if you have a chance, put it on your YouTube or your Spotify or whatever. It's called You'll Never Walk Alone by John Farnham. So until next week, bye for now.